Good morning, it's Jeff Christian from CPM Group. It's about 11:25 on Friday, the 13th of May here in New York. I'm going to talk a little bit about where gold and silver stand now. Prices have fallen sharply, but they've fallen in line with bond prices and stock prices. And the entire financial market is looking at a new world, saying, where are we now? The dollar is up strongly, but the dollar is up strongly for a variety of reasons, one of which is that interest rates are rising. And I think interest rates are probably still the prime mover here. So the rise in interest rates is having an effect on other factors like inflation expectations, the currency markets, bond markets, stock markets, and commodities. Gold has fallen faster than we thought it was. We had thought that the gold price might find support around 1830 in the near term. We've been saying since at least the beginning of the year that we thought that during the second and third quarters of this year, the price could fall as low as 1780. It got down to 1792 today, and we looked up and said, oh, well, it is the second quarter. It is a little bit earlier than we thought. We do think that there is some seasonality here that's kicking in, as well as macroeconomic factors, which I'll talk about going forward. It is a little bit earlier than we thought, but it is what's happening in the market. We had thought that silver would find support around 2150, not only over the last few weeks, but also over the second and third quarters. I think that is the low that we've been predicting or projecting for the seasonal weakness that we had expected in the second and third quarters. Price got below $21 in the last couple of days. It fell as low as $20.50 at one point. It's just below $21 as I'm speaking to you now. So the precious metals prices have been weaker than we had anticipated. We had anticipated weakness in the middle part of this year, but it's come sooner and it's been more forceful than we had expected. Very short term, wouldn't be surprised to see some, correction buying there. Gold could go back up to 1830 or something, but we still think it's vulnerable to the downside over the next couple quarters. Silver seems way oversold. We still think that 2150 is a good base, and the fact that it's gotten down to 2050 just makes it that much more attractive as a longer term investment. We don't see the sell-off in gold and silver as a indication that the bull market over the last couple of years is over. We think that it's a pause in the longer term upward move. We still expect stronger gold and silver prices a few years from now, and we think that the consolidation period will continue. But you're seeing all of the financial markets, including gold and silver, adjust to a new environment with higher. They're still very low and they're still negative on a real basis, higher interest rates, a stronger dollar. We're seeing the inflation figures as we have expected. Prices are still high, but the rates of changes in prices are starting to show signs of peaking. And I'll show you a chart in a second on that. Interest rates, the Fed has become much more militant in fighting inflation and will probably continue. And the dollar has been stronger, which is distracting some people. The stock market, meanwhile, is scary. And there are a lot of people who think that the stock market is going to head much slower. A week ago, I pointed out that the Dow Jones, which people were saying was collapsing, had fallen all the way back to levels that we had seen in March. The Dow Jones and the S&P are now at levels that we haven't seen since the first quarter of last year. Now, the first quarter of last year was the beginning of the economic recovery, the rolling out of vaccines, and coming off of a pretty dismal 2020. But yes, the stock market has been weak, and it's scaring a lot of people. And you see a lot of gold and silver promoters talking about the ultimate collapse of the stock market. And as I said last week, you're seeing people honestly and legit, well, maybe not honestly, but you're seeing gold and silver promoters talking about a 70, 80, 90% decline in the stock market on a permanent basis. Yeah, we just don't see that. But all of those factors have contributed to a reduction in the risk premium in financial markets, which has been reflected in lower gold and silver prices. The war, meanwhile, remains uncertain, but it's moving into what I termed here in quotes, it may be a stasis condition. So everyone's gearing up for a longer term war that could last months, if not years, between Russia and Ukraine. I'm still not convinced that it's going to go that much longer. I don't think it will persist for years. It's too destructive of economic activity, not only in Ukraine and Russia, but also on a global basis. But again, that war premium has dissipated. And then there's some seasonality. So let me just look here. These are the U.S. Consumer Price Index figures that came out earlier this week. On the left, you see the month-to-month changes, which, as I've explained, that tells you what's going on now. On the right, you see the year-over-year changes, and that's what a lot of people focus on. So they see 8.5%, headline inflation in the CPI, year-over-year changes in prices. And about a little over 6% in terms of core inflation, ex more volatile food and energy. We have seen them come off a little bit. As I said, prices are still high, but you have seen those year-over-year figures change. But the important thing, which I keep explaining, is that it was really April of last year when you start to see higher CPI figures coming out, both on a year-over-year basis and a month-to-month. So you can see April of last year was 0.5% unchanged month-to-month. In January, it was about 1.8%. In February, it was about 1.8%. March, I think it got over 2%. And then it shot up to 0.5% in April. So we're now in the period where going forward, starting with the April data that was released this week, you will be measuring the inflation rates and price levels over, a high inflation period in 2021 compared to 2022. We still see prices staying high, but the percentage change in prices, both on a month-to-month basis and on a year-over-year basis, are likely to decline, reducing inflation expectations and fears. We also had the PPI come out this week, and again, you saw the same sort of thing. And you actually saw a virtually zero in the final demand for services there. So you're starting to see some inflation expectations that the inflation rates have peaked and that they could soften. And that has had a negative consequence on investment demand for gold and silver. The dollar, meanwhile, has risen strongly. Again, the gold promoters and silver promoters keep talking about the ultimate collapse of the dollar. And this only goes back, this chart that I have here only goes back to 2007, but you can see the large increase in the dollar's exchange rate over the last 10 years, 14 years. And the key is, and we say this all the time, it's not that we're bullish on the dollar. We're just less bearish on the US economy than we are on other economies. For the dollar to decline or collapse, you have to have a much stronger expectations of stronger economic activity in Japan, Europe, and now the UK, our major other industrial countries that have convertible currencies. And that's just not happening. There's also this whole issue of the Great Reset, which again, you hear that term and you hear this concept of governments of the world calling in money and, I don't know, putting us all in concentration camps or some nonsense like that. this great reset, you hear the gold and silver promoters talk about, but you never hear central bankers or treasurers. And it's not that they're keeping it a secret. They just don't think that way. It's nonsense. It's marketing hype. Boo. You better buy gold and silver because they're going to take your money away. It's just nonsense. And then seasonality, which is a minor factor, but it's an important factor. In the summertime, a lot of factories that use gold and silver in jewelry and electronics and other applications go on rolling vacation schedules, do inventory work, vacuum the floors and everything and walls and clean up their area. And you tend to see less demand for gold and silver in the summer months, where we're moving now, June, July, August, in both gold and silver. And so that seasonality is kicking in. And that tells us that while we do think that prices have been oversold, have become oversold in the last 2 days, we are heading to that period where we thought that the prices would show their weakest signs for the year. And it's partly based on seasonality, but it's also based, much more importantly, on trends that we see in the physical markets for gold and silver and the macroeconomic environment. So that's sort of what I have. I wanted to address a couple housekeeping things, responses to questions that are persistently asked by true believers of conspiracy theories and other things. And the one question is, why do almost all mining companies not support the conspiracy theories? And the answer is, the brief answer is, they know better. One of the reasons they know better is we have advised most major gold and silver mining companies over the decades. I mean, really starting in the late 1980s, talking to them about, well, here are these conspiracy theories that say that, banks and governments are conspiring to suppress gold and silver prices. And people, the mining companies would ask us, Jeff, you guys know this stuff. We don't. We're just miners or lawyers. Lawyers in the role of being CEOs of miners. Tell us, what are these conspiracy theories? And we have presentations that we've made since the late 1980s, reports that we've written. We've actually, one company paid us to reach out to the guy who created the silver conspiracy theories and try to see what he knew. And then when we said he knows nothing, they paid us to try to help him understand the market, until my analysts just threw up their arms and said, this guy does not want to understand. He's got this marketing spiel about this conspiracy, and nothing more that we can say to him will cause him to stop saying that. This is his cottage industry. Another mining company, actually several mining companies, have paid us to do the same thing with the gold conspiracy boys when they came into being around the year 2000. And there's some very funny stories about events that had there. But we will sit down with mining companies, we'll make presentations, we'll give them reports, we'll talk about the nature of the gold and silver conspiracy theories. We'll review the allegations, we'll list them. GATA came to us in 2010 and said, we dare Jeff Christian to refute these 6 irrefutable pieces of evidence of a gold conspiracy. So we refuted them. We refuted them indisputably. And then, we had a couple debates with them at the request of mining companies and others who said these guys are really hurting the legitimacy of gold and silver as investments in the eyes of mainstream investors. And they're hurting the industry in other ways. And it would be really good if you would debate them. And I said, I really don't like to debate people like that. Talk about that in a second. But yeah, I will. So we did a couple debates there, and they said, here are the 6 pieces of irrefutable evidence that there's this massive conspiracy. And we refuted it all effectively. So the mining companies listen to this. They listen to the conspiracy theories. They actually do listen to them. They we give them that information. We give them background on the people that are behind these things. We give them background on the companies and the promoters who are secretly financing some of the guys who promote these theories. We actually had a client, very wealthy client, who was a computer expert, who tracked down some of the websites that were promoting the theory that JP Morgan was driving the market, and that if you took your gold out of Scotiabank and silver out of Scotiabank, you could bankrupt JP Morgan. This guy actually on his own tracked the ultimate ownership of those websites back to the daughter of one of the more prominent precious metals conspiracy promoters through Southeast Asian companies. Give them that kind of evidence. We give them the evidence that the conspiracy theorist promoters put forth. We give them the evidence that that is not good evidence. We refute that evidence. And we give them evidence about the investigations at the CFTC, the FCA, the FSA, before the FCC, the Bank of England, and others have done on these things. Because sometimes people do say, well, okay, doesn't sound realistic, but let's investigate it anyway. At some point, I want to talk, I'm not ready. Hopefully next month, I'll be ready to talk about the concept of unfalsifiability. Unfalsifiability is when somebody says, okay, there's no gold in Fort Knox. And the Treasury comes on and says, well, here's the assay of it. Then they say, well, okay. But if I say that that gold is secretly hypothecated, you can't prove my allegation wrong. It's like, when did you stop beating your wife? Well, I never stopped beating my wife because I never started beating my wife. Aha! You never stopped beating your wife. Yeah. Unfalsifiability is the mother lode for conspiracy theorist promoters. Because, okay, yeah, there's a hypothecation, but it's secret and there's no documentation. It's just there. So yeah, the gold's still there physically. I know I've been telling you for 40 years that the gold's not there. And now everybody knows the gold is there. But if I'm telling you that the gold's still there physically, but it's actually been sold off or hypothecated, hey, try to disprove that. Unfalsifiability. It's the mother lode of conspiracy believers. Anyway, that's what it is. Simple answer as to why most mining company executives do not go around promoting conspiracy theories is because A, they know better, B, they know they're not true, and C, they know that that kind of garbage in the gold and silver publication atmosphere pollutes that atmosphere and drives legitimate mainstream investors away. Another question we get is, why don't I debate certain people? Well, I do debate certain people. And as I said, there have been times when mining companies and others have come to me and said, Jeff, will you debate these people because they're really becoming a nuisance to us or to the broader market. But here's what I look for. And, you know, it's funny because I saw an interview with Neil deGrasse Tyson a year ago or so. And somebody asked him why he didn't debate certain people. He said, I have no interest in debating people. You know, I'd gladly have an open discussion with people if they are honest and knowledgeable and intelligent. But I have no interest in debating people who just want to debate me. And they are sort of like sobakas. That's Russian for lapdog. You know, they sort of nip at your ankles. The little dog that barks at the big dog. Hey, if I can debate Jeff Christian, I'm legitimizing myself. Or rather, he's legitimizing myself. Some of them are just crazy. I mean, some of them I think really are crazy. And there's one guy who showed up at a silver summit years ago, you know, drunk and on all sorts of drugs and stuff. And I think they actually escorted him off the property. There are other people who are just blatantly lying. And it's very weird when you see somebody who says lies that are easily refuted. I mean, you know, if you're going to lie about something that's hard to prove that you're lying. But some of these guys just like, you know, oh, gee, you know, this or that or the other thing. You got to be honest. You have to be unwilling to lie and make stuff up if you want me to talk to you and debate you. You have to be intelligent. You have to be able to think and think discerningly and discern between good stuff, information, and bad information. You need to be informed. You need to be knowledgeable. I'm not here to educate people who go around putting up prepubescent advertisement cartoons of me. Yeah, that's not my job. I won't tell you what I would do. They have to be ethical. They have to be transparent. Where's your money coming from, Bubba? You know, when we unveiled Andrew McGuire as somebody who had never worked in the bullion trading business and actually had been a car leasing agent, and he'd never worked at J. Aron. That night, Eric Sprott was on Eric King talking about how Andrew McGuire was one of the most noble people he knew. Okay, yeah. Yeah, you have to be ethical. You have to be transparent. We have to know who's supporting you with your allegations. Be deluded. You can't be self-deluded. We want you to be professional. There's one guy who was saying that he wants to challenge me at the Silver Symposium in August or September. And he said he has a piece of paper that proves the conspiracy. We'd love to see that piece of paper. And you have to be graceful. So I have made some exceptions. I probably make some exceptions in the future, like maybe Tuesday at the VRIC. But I try not to, because quite frankly, it's a loser's game. If you've got somebody who's promoting this stuff and he's being paid to promote it, you know, you're not going to cause him to stop, you know, oh, I'm going to fold up my business. You caught me, I'm a liar. Well, you know, you're not going to win with that kind of person. If you have a true believer or an alcoholic like that billionaire that used to bother us, like, hey, why doesn't somebody just buy all the silver and the COMEX and drive the price sky high? You know, if you've got a true believer, we don't really want to waste our time with them. And if we do, and we do sometimes, like with the Alki, we charge them an extra premium for the pain and mental distress of having to deal with them. I will be at the VRIC next week. I'm going to be on a panel discussion on silver. I will be making a presentation to the Yukon Mining Alliance within the VRIC on the real reasons to own gold, and by extension, the reasons not to own gold, or bad reasons to own gold, I guess. I will be giving a talk on gold and silver supplies, reserves, and above ground inventories. Then they've asked me to be on another panel called Macro Finance, Truth, Lies, Head Fakes, and Money, whatever that means. We will have an open forum, a 1-hour question and answer session on Tuesday night at the VRIC. After the VRIC sessions end, so I think it's 5:45 or so, we will have an hour-long Q&A where people can just ask us questions. So if you're in Vancouver or you have nothing else to do on Tuesday and Wednesday, go to Vancouver and we'll see you there. And we'll enjoy ourselves. Got the VRIC and Yukon Mining Alliance next week. We'll do an open forum for our clients on the 28th of May. We will have an open free silver online seminar on June 1st, similar to the Silver Facts and Fantasies that we did last February. And you can always go to our website, subscribe, buy our gold yearbook, buy our silver yearbook, which came out this week. I think I actually have a copy printed out here. This is the silver yearbook. It's about 230 pages, fun facts, mostly charts and tables. So even gold conspiracy believers can work their way through it. It's 230 pages, but a lot of charts and tables, but everything you really need to know about silver. And we have a similar gold yearbook that we released in April, and we are now fast and furiously working on our Platinum Group Metals yearbook, which we'll release in June. That's all I have for now. We'll talk to you next week. Have a good weekend. Stay good. Stay clean, take care of yourself, and watch out for everybody around you.